All right, class. First off, as always, good day. I'm glad you're here. Today, we are going to be going over the Great Depression and how this affected the European countries at that time. Okay. Now, here's the thing. Next year, when you take U.S. history, or if you're already taking it this year, you'll know how the Great Depression affected the United States. So, if you already know that, or if you know, you have the class this year, you already have an idea what's happening here. But if you have no idea what's going on with the Great Depression, things like that, this will help you out next year. So try to keep this in the back of your mind, okay? So the objective, we're going to analyze the effect tariffs had on European countries. You're going to find out what tariffs are if you have no idea. And then we're going to examine the impact the Great Depression had on European countries. And then lastly, we're going to create an argument on who is largely to blame for the Great Depression. Okay, let's go ahead and go to the warm up. So, uh, as you may or may not be able to see, because I don't know, again, I don't know if you're on your phone or what, but if you're on your phone, it might be hard for you to read what it says on the lady's chest. It says billions of government spending. In the water, where her hand is kind of free, below it, it says billions of debt. If you notice the guy, water around him says billions of deficit. The little tag around the thin guy says taxpayers. Okay, so the first question asks you what's going on here. Look at what he's saying. Look at his body language. I mean, especially look at his feet. Look what he's doing with his feet. And those of you guys who've been in the ocean, you've been in the sand, you probably have a good idea of how effective that might be or may not be. Okay. The second question asks you, what do you think this artist is trying to say about government spending and the taxpayers, which is me, eventually is going to be your parents, grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins, older brothers, sisters, you know, people who pay their taxes. What do you think this artist is trying to say? Okay, so pause the video, write your response, okay, because we're moving on in three, two, one. All right, so when we're talking about depression, in this case, we're not talking about you're feeling depression. No, we're talking about economic depression. Economic depression is a period when there is a low economic activity and a rise in unemployment. Okay, now some students in class try to say, well, we're in a depression right now, aren't we? No, we're not. We are not. Okay, for one thing, we don't have unemployment because everywhere you look around town, on the news, in the newspaper, even on social media, people are putting on there, hey, we're hiring people. We're hiring, you know. So places are hiring around. And it's not like everyone's watching their every dollar and things like that. No, some people are spending money. Some people are going on trips and things like that. Okay. They're talking about people not spending a single dollar on anything but food, clothing, and someplace to stay. Okay. Now, the thing is, there's a lot of things, contributors, a lot of factors that came into the Great Depression, why it actually happened. But there are two major ones. Okay. One, the price of farm products fell rapidly due to overproduction. So basically, farmers would be told, hey, if you can, I'll pay $150 for a bag of corn, when usually a bag of corn maybe costs like 20 bucks, 30 bucks. Somebody's saying, I'll pay 150, and all of a sudden I'll pay $200. So the need for corn was pretty big. Now, what happened was this: a lot of farmers kind of got greedy and said, well, heck, if this guy's willing to spend that much for corn, I'm going to plant all my fields full of corn. You think he's the only person to think that? No. Other farmers did the same thing, but with wheat, corn, cotton, potatoes, everything where the price was really high, they started planting it in all their fields. They forgot about things like cucumbers and strawberries. So all their fields are full of wheat, corn, cotton, potatoes, things like that. So when it's time for harvest, they harvest it all. All of them go to that person saying, "Here, I'll pay. I'll sell you all this for 150." They're like, "Oh, there's way too many of you guys. I'm not gonna pay 150 bucks for a bag of corn from all you guys. That's ridiculous. There's too much of it." So the thing is, always remember that when there's overproduction, there's too much of something, the value goes down. I've said it in class hundreds of times. If Michael Jordan signed one basketball his whole life, his whole career, and you have it, that basketball is going to be worth a lot because he only signed it one time. There's no other signatures of his anywhere. That's going to be worth a lot. Okay. Now, if he signed everything, he wrote on the walls, he wrote on every piece of paper, he wrote on park benches, on dogs, some old lady's forehead, his signature is not going to be worth anything because why? It's everywhere. You see it everywhere, so it's not valuable. Okay, so that's what happened with the food. They grew so much of the same product, there was too much that nobody was willing to pay for a high price, so the price goes down. Okay, now here's a little fun part too. Remember I told you about the strawberries and cucumbers, the things they didn't plant? They just focused on the corn and wheat and some of that. Now, since nobody planted that stuff, the price for strawberries and cucumbers and things like that jumped up, while corn and cotton and all that stuff went down. Okay. The other thing that happened was an international financial crisis involving the U.S. stock market happened. Um, this was the great crash of 1929. Um, the stock market was basically just hit hard in the United States. Basically, what happened was the stock of companies, how valuable a company is, and it just kept going higher and higher and higher. But the problem was the company really wasn't worth here. It was actually worth like down here, actually below where my hand is. It was really low. The thing why um, nobody said anything is because the people, the CEOs, and all these people who talk to investors, talk to people who are going to put money into the company, they're telling them, hey, things are great. We're doing very well. In reality, no, they're not making as much product. They had to fire people, they had to lower the pay of people, but they're telling investors, yeah, put your money to our company, we'll make you money, things like that. So the stock went up. Those CEO people, they have stock in that company. So they're not going to say, no, don't invest in us. Our company is not making much. We had to fire some workers, things like that. Because if they tell people that, then people are going to not put their money into it, and that stock's going to go down. So they won't be making money. So they kept their mouth shut. They lied to people, and the stock just kept going up. Okay. Now, a year before the stock market crashed, U.S. investors basically took their money out of Germany and out of Europe. They were putting money into companies and things like that in Europe because the thing is, you want to buy low and sell high. So, like, I'll just use this one. So, like these little pot figures I have, you know, let's say like this one, I got for like $7. Right now, it's probably worth like 20 some dollars. Right? I bought it really cheap when it first came out, and now this time has gone by, and they stopped making these. Now people want these who didn't get them the first time. So that's the thing in Europe. Companies were really down because of the war. So U.S. people were like, "Oh, I'll buy part of your company. I'll pay for part of your company." And as those companies started getting back on their feet, they started making money. The U.S. people started making money. But once they saw how high the stock market was in the US, they stopped putting their money into Europe and put it into the stock market, and then the year later it crashed, so they lost everything. Now here's the thing. On October 1929, the Black Thursday and Black Tuesday crashes. Some stock instead of going, some stock declined like this, very slowly, very slowly, very slowly, still quick, but slowly. And then there were some stock, I mean, they went worth like 120 bucks 1 minute, and then 5 minutes later, worth nothing. It was like that. Because again, people found out now, hey, these companies are not worth that much. They're supposedly up here, but really they're worth down here. That's a huge gap. So when the company people found out and they try to sell their stock, nobody wanted it because again, why pay for something up here when it's worth down here? You know? So the people trying to sell their stock, no, nobody was buying. So the stock just going down, 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 down. And then when it got below what it was worth, people were like, why am I going to put money into that company? It sucks. They lied. So that's why the stock market crashed. So here's your first question. During a time when people are financially hurting and a country needs money, do you think it's more important for people to buy things made in their country or be able to buy for an item that's cheaper? Okay. What I mean is this, like when you buy stuff in Fresno, the money stays in Fresno. It's like if you buy something at Target, the money stays in that store, and then that store can pay the workers, and the workers can then go to Walmart, buy things, or go to a grocery store, buy things in town. So that money stays in town. But if you buy things online, because it's cheaper, chances are that money is going to be going to like China, Japan. It might be going, if you buy stuff on Amazon, it'll be going to another state because that's where Amazon's headquarters is, you know. So in a time of financial crunch, do you think it's important that people make sure they buy from our country so that the money stays here? Or do you think, hey, you know what? When people are financially hurt, they should be able to buy the cheapest thing, whether it's from our country or not? What do you think? Okay. So pause the video, write your response because we're moving on in 3, 2, 1. So here's the thing. Europe is no stranger to economic depressions. They've been through it time and time again. The tulip depression, the tulip crash, that's happened before. But this was unlike anything anyone has seen before because it hit the world. The world was hit. And it's because of this, the crash of 1929 is known still to this day around the world as the Great Depression. So you can go to any history book around the world and you can see it on there. It says in October 1929, it's known as the start of the Great Depression. If you look at other wars, battles, things like that, they'll have a different name for them. But since everyone hurt at the same time and hurt badly, it was known as the Great Depression. So in Britain, 1 in 4 people couldn't find a job. Not only did they lose their job, they couldn't find another one. It's not like they were lazy, like, oh, well, I lost my job. No, I'll just sit here on my butt and do nothing. No, people were really looking for jobs. So for every 4 people, 1 person didn't have a job. And those who did have a job, their pay dropped down quick. Now, I had a student some years ago say, oh, well, if a company cut my pay, I'd just quit. In this situation, they'd let you go in a heartbeat. I mean, quick, fast, and in a hurry, because there are a lot of people that 1%, 1 in 4, that 1 person will jump on that job in a heartbeat. They'll work for less money because they know it's better to get something than nothing. And believe me, it'd be nice to say, well, forget this job and things like that and walk off. But when the world is hurting the way it was back then, if you were lucky enough to have a job, you made sure you kept your job. In Germany, 5.5 million people couldn't find a job either. That's 30% of the country. So for every 10 people, 3 people will be without jobs. Okay. So the streets were filled with unemployed people, people who were homeless because they couldn't pay for their the mortgage on their home. The banks took over the home. Nobody was wanting to buy the home, um, so they were basically kicked out. Uh, and like you see in this picture here, those two pictures, that was very common. You'd see kids, people, old people, young people, whoever, going through garbage cans trying to find something to eat. You know, they'd be trying to find something to eat that the ants or roaches, brats hadn't got to yet. That was not uncommon. And another thing too, homeless people. I know some students in class, oh, well, I see homeless people all the time. Yeah, you do, you know, but they're like one here, and then like a couple, several miles later, there's another one. Imagine walking down the street and you can't go 20 feet, 30 feet without a homeless person right there, on average, you know. And from what I've researched and read, yeah, some people died. They thought, oh, this homeless person's sleeping. No, they're dead. They died of exposure. They died from hunger, you know, because again, some places they didn't have soup lines, bread lines. So people starved to death. Those digging in trash cans and things like that. They had nothing. So since this was like unlike any depression experiencing the history of the world, governments panicked like crazy. And they remember they had lower wages, so workers weren't getting as much money. But the thing is, they wanted people to buy stuff from their country and not from like another country. So like here in the US, they would want people to buy US products, stuff made in the US. And anything made from like China, Japan, Britain, France, Italy, they didn't want you to buy it. So what they did is they added this thing called a tariff. A tariff is basically an extra tax. So let's say a bag of chips, right, from the United States costs $8, right? Big bag of chips. And another bag of chips that tastes just as good, the same size, is from Mexico and it's selling for $4. So you got one bag for 8, one for 4. Okay. The top one, this one here for $8, this is from made in the US. This bottom one here is made in Mexico. Chances are you're going to buy the Mexico one because it's $4. The other one's 8. You're basically paying, you know, you'd be paying twice as much for the same amount of chips, same amount of flavor and everything else, you know. So what the tariff does, it puts a tax on this stuff from Mexico because they don't want that money going to Mexico. So they put an extra tax on it. So now the price of it jumps up here. So here's the US for $8. It hasn't moved. But the one from Mexico, now with that tariff, it went from $4 to $12. That's a big jump. And that's what these tariffs do. So then people look at it going, oh my God, I thought it was $4. Man, it's $12. You know what? I'm going to get that $8 bag instead. Because people think, oh, I'm getting a cheaper price. But in reality, that American price never changed. Tariffs hurt people like you and me. So we think we're getting a deal. In reality, we're not because that price never changed. The way we can get deals if it went from $8 to $6 or $5, you know, get closer to that Mexico price, but no. And that's what's wrong with tariffs. It hurts the American people. It hurts the people from that country um, more than it's helping the country. And then this again made things worse because the Great Depression. Nobody had money. No one could afford to buy even higher things. Even though this looks like a deal, people are like, I don't have that money for that. I barely had money for down here. So people say, well, I'm not going to buy any of that stuff because I can't afford it. So now that product goes to waste, whether it was food or material, things like that. Hey, it's going to go to waste. So here's your next question. Do you think the world will ever go into another Great Depression? Why or why not? The writing prompts on the bottom there for you. Okay. I think the world will go through another Great Depression. I think the world won't go through another Great Depression. And tell me why do you think so? Or say it won't go through it. Okay. So pause the video, write your response because we're moving on in three, two, one. Now, due to the lack of confidence in the capitalist type of economy, some countries are looking at this guy up on top. His name is Karl Marx. They're like, oh, this guy has some good ideas. Now, Marx basically predicted that under capitalism, because the market says, hey, the price of this should be up here, that overproduction is going to happen, which is again when people like the farmers, this bucket of corn, we'll pay $200 for it. Those farmers are going to make a bunch of it, all of them. So now the market's full of corn, and so the price is going to go down. So what he said about the overproduction did happen, and then he says, and if this keeps happening, the market's going to collapse, which it did. So some people are looking at Marx going, "Oh my God, this guy basically predicted the future. Maybe we should his idea of communism, maybe this might work." Because under communism, basically on paper, it says that the government will control everything. There wouldn't be individual owners of businesses and things like that. So basically, those millionaires like Bezos and Musk and all those guys, they would not be at that level, okay, because the government controls it all. Everyone in a communist country gets a job. If you need something from the government, they will get it for you, okay? Um, Healthcare is for free, you know. So it sounds really, really good, that again, the money's distributed equally. Nobody's really billionaires and things like that. Nobody's really poor because again, the government takes care of you. It sounds good on paper, but in real life, it sucks. It really does suck because like everyone gets a job. Yeah, but let's say you want to be a pilot. No, they'd be like, yeah, we have too many pilots. We're going to put you in a factory, or we're going to make you work in the fields. And let's say you want something from the government. You're like, oh man, my car broke down. I need another car. Okay, we can get you a car. You were thinking, oh, I want to get a Lexus. I want to get this, Honda. No, they're going to get you like a little metro car. So you don't get individual choices. They pick the stuff for you. You know, so it is bad. So the thing is, the Great Depression also made people follow political leaders who said, "Oh, if you do this and follow me, we will get out of this depression." You know, and they only asked for power in return. One of those groups is one that was led by a little guy who was a German and had a little funny mustache. Now, most democratic countries, women couldn't vote. Okay, hate to say it, ladies, but yeah, you guys wouldn't get the right to vote. In the US, women got the right to vote in 1920. In France, it basically had the end near the end of the war, 1944. In Italy, 1945. In Switzerland, the neutral country, it wouldn't be until 1971. Yeah, so the idea of like, oh, women have always been like this. Oh, women always had the right for this and that. No, no, it's only a recent thing within the past 100 and some years. Okay. Now, Germany lost all imperial powers thanks to World War One when they signed the treaties. So they only had their own little pocket of land. So they became a republic. Inflation made people's lives savings basically worthless. So, like you see this picture of this lady right here, that's money she has right there. She's gonna burn it to keep the fire going in her stove. Okay. So imagine working 40, 50 years of your life saving up, putting money away so you can live a nice retired life and things like that. And then all of a sudden, your money's worthless. Yeah, it was pretty bad. Okay. The Great Depression led to fear and the rise of this one extreme political party. They were called the Nationalist Workers Union, and they went by another name called Nazis, which we'll be talking about next week. Now, France, of all the European countries, they were the ones who were the most strongest. Their economy was really, really strong. And due to their economic balances and savvy with the markets and some of that, um, they were able to avoid any type of financial pinch for like 3 years. Okay, so they were really doing well. While the whole world is hurting, they were actually doing pretty well for 3 years. But then once they felt like, oh my God, this is real. Oh, we thought this was not going to hurt us, and it did. Some people were like, well, maybe we need to change our political system. Some people said we should be that communist like those other countries. Some said, no, we should be socialist, you know. And then there was this thing called the Popular Front government. Now, what this did, they started programs for workers called the French New Deal. Why is it called the French New Deal? Because America had a new program called the New Deal by FDR. Now, what this New Deal did for America, they wanted to do in France, which was, hey, companies aren't hiring people. Remember, 1 in 4 people are without a job. People are trying to honestly look for a job, but they can't find one. So what the New Deal did was basically hire people. The government hired people. Cities hired people. And the government would say, okay, well, here in the mountains, there's a lot of dead trees. Okay, so we're going to hire you guys. You're going to go up to the mountains, cut down those dead trees, clean up all those bushes and brushes and those needles that come from the trees. Clean all that stuff up. Okay, um, you guys over here, we're going to have you guys fix the roads. Okay, the roads are really bad. We're going to redo the roads. You guys over here, we're going to build a dam. All right, collect water, and we're going to put a generator in there. So when the water goes through that area, it's going to turn the generator, and there we got free electricity for everyone. Okay. This also gave workers the power to negotiate wages and hours with companies. This is where the 40-hour work week comes in. Paid vacation, minimum wage, all this stuff comes out in the 1930s. Now, Britain, even before the Great Depression, they were hurting pretty bad. Companies in coal, steel, textiles, they were basically going in decline. They were already coming down right when the war ended. Okay, so in 1921, 8 years before the Great Depression, already they had 2 million unemployed people. Okay, and when the Great Depression hit, it hit them hard too. I mean, really, really bad. Some political parties lost control, you know, and the political party that took control of Britain, they were like, huh, well, we know the problem to hold this whole depression, and we're going to fix Britain. One of the things we're doing is spending way too much money. The government should be taking care of everyone. The government should be doing all this stuff. So let's trim the budget and let's put tariffs. So make sure people buy things from our country. Again, bad choices. So here's your question. Who do you think deserves most of the blame for the Great Depression? Each one of these groups are to blame. Okay? Governments, they knew companies were lying. They knew things were bad, but it made their government money. So they just turned a blind eye to it because the country was making money off these companies. Okay? Or do you blame companies, for lying to investors, saying, "Oh yeah, we're doing really well," but in reality they weren't because they wanted that stock to keep going up? Do you blame farmers for being greedy? So like all of them started, you know, planting the same crop and then that made the price drop down real quick? Or do you blame investors? People should have known, hey, the stock market keep going up and up? No, something's up. There's no such thing as a guarantee. They should have known better. They shouldn't have put their life savings into the stock market. So who do you think deserves most of the blame? Again, each one of them deserves blame, but who do you think deserves it more? Okay. And like I said it in class, the thing was each one of these groups, greed. Greed was a big thing. They all had greed and it blinded them and they paid the price for it. Okay. So go ahead and write your response. Once you've written your response, there is no exit ticket. So on your paper it says exit ticket, you can just cross it off. You can put like you said no, there's no exit ticket. You can put whatever you want, okay? But that's it. Okay, so hopefully you learned something new. Hopefully you enjoyed this lesson. Next week we'll be starting getting into World War II. We're going to talk about Hitler, how he came to power, and things like that. Okay, and then why did he not like Jewish people? We're going to get into that kind of stuff. All right. So you guys, you take care, you be safe, and I'll see you guys later. Okay.